Well, the journey began, I think, the day we got married. Lena and I wanted to become parents. We wanted to have children. That was pretty much assumed as we started dating and realized that we wanted to spend our lives together.
I always knew that children would be part of my life, and when it wasn't going to happen on its own, I knew that what was most important to me was being a mom. You're sort of struggling with, how do I define myself? You know, I'm supposed to be someone's mother, and this isn't working, and what's wrong with me? I can put all this money and all this time into why my body's not cooperating or why my husband's body's not cooperating and not be sure that I'm going to have a child in my life. Or I can spend that money and put my effort and my time into this particular route that I chose, adoption, and maybe not know when, but definitely know that a child was coming to my life.
We chose the independent adoption agency because we thought it would be, one, good for us, and two, good for our children growing up because we wanted it to be in an open adoption. I think for men, there's always a fear. You want to protect your families from any type of possible hurt, possible issue that they can come in contact with. And it really was a question of just coming to grips with the openness of it and realizing it was something good and it was something that you should not be afraid of.
Open adoption is not for everyone, but the biggest beneficiary of open adoption is the child itself. And for the child to know, at a minimum, their medical and social history, why they look the way they do, and most of all, that this adoption was made out of love. Many adoptive parents are not very open to openness at the beginning. It's definitely an evolving process and a learning experience for adoptive parents as well as their families. It takes some getting used to. It takes doing some reading, actually meeting birth parents through our weekend intensive and seeing the love they have for the baby, and understanding that when the birth parent sees the baby happy with the adopting parents, that's comforting to them. It doesn't make them think they want to take the baby back. It just validates their feeling that they made the right choice in placing the baby for adoption, to see the baby so happy and healthy.
I always thought of open adoption just because I didn't know much about it, but I thought that that would be a great way. I couldn't hand over a child and never see it again. And I remembered in the phone book there was a picture and it talked about open adoptions, and it was a girl holding a child. And I called and I talked to Sarah. Sarah wasn't pressuring. She seemed like a friend, but it wasn't how people are sincere, or they try to be sincere when they're not. And she asked me, just questions about the baby, questions about myself, questions about the birth father, and said she'd send me a packet.
The role of the counselor is actually very large in an open adoption because we're really working to help both parties and to mediate between them. That's providing counseling to birth parents, ongoing counseling. We find that often they don't have a lot of support in their life, and we act as a major support person, even being told, you're the only person that didn't abandon me in my life. I got the package and read everything. Every last page, every picture I looked at. So I called Martha and Kathleen, the people that I really felt more of a connection with. I got an answering machine, which was so hard because you work yourself up to make this phone call that's so important, and you want these people to like you because you like them and you want to see how they are, but you want them to also like you back. And it was an answering machine. I left a quick message and hung up the phone. They called back an hour later. We talked for, I don't know, probably 2 hours on the phone, just talking about each other and talking about the baby and what was going on in our lives. And we decided that we were going to try a match meeting. We went together to the agency the following day and placed Kai. That's when we did everything, the match meeting, the openness plan, everything in that day. And it was wonderful because I got to spend time with these people. It's probably the hardest thing you'll ever go through, but on the other end, it's very rewarding, and there's so much love involved, and I wouldn't change my choice for anything. The role for the adopting parents is trying to ease their nerves a little bit, because obviously it's a very emotional process going through this after and during the years of infertility and coming so close to having a baby and trying to help them understand the needs of the birth parents.
I knew that the agency that I wanted to work with had to be one where they supported me as well as, you know, the other part of the equation had to be the birth family.
Match meeting, I think, was a key factor in helping us overcome fear, certainly mine, because I said to Lena, I want to tell these people what I'm afraid about.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to ask them, what are they afraid about? So I said, what's your biggest fear in this whole process?
And that was some of theirs.
And they looked at us and they said, we're worried and afraid that you're going to back out. And I said, you're kidding. That's exactly how we feel.
It was good.
We looked at each other and said, okay, then we don't have anything to fear anymore.
I really felt, particularly with my first, I knew her circumstance and I knew the talks that we had had. I knew she was very committed. I knew in her mind, she knew she wasn't equipped to do this. And just from our conversations, I mean, I never once doubted her commitment to going through with this process, never. And of course, as she's getting ready to leave the hospital, all four of us are walking down the stairs, and we get to the front lobby, and they basically hand the baby to her. You know, the nurse is carrying the baby, hands the baby to her, and we're just sort of standing there, and the two guys went out to get the car, and the nurse went away. And to this day, it is one of the eeriest things. It felt to me like time had stopped, like there was no wind blowing, there were no cars driving by in the front of the hospital, there was no one else in the lobby. And she just held this baby for a second, looked at it, and turned around and looked at me. And she handed me the baby, and she said, here you go, Mom. That still gets me.
As we were leaving the hospital, I asked the birth father, as they carried the baby out, if he would put the baby in our car seat. And he was pretty stoic up until that point. He burst into tears. I started crying. He put the baby in our car. Lena was crying.
I was hugging him and saying goodbye to him. He said to me, you know, just be good to her. And I just fell apart. And it just was this amazing moment. We
sort of drove off into the sunset, and I knew that this was our baby. We were bringing our baby home.
The range of open relationships is actually very large, and there's no right or wrong answer about how much contact adopting parents and birth parents and the birth child should have. For some people, they want a lot of openness, and that might mean monthly visits at the beginning if they live close by and have ongoing contact throughout the years. For other people, it might just be one visit a year and sending letters and pictures. And for some, it is just letters and pictures, and they choose not to necessarily meet in the first couple of years. What's important is that we try to help facilitate what is the right amount of contact for both parties, and that's what makes a good match. There's no right or wrong about the level of contact. It's just finding two parties that are on the same page with that.
We went up for his first birthday. It was wonderful to see him in his home with his animals, with his favorite toys, with his favorite people and relatives, and it was just wonderful, all the friends and all the love that he has around him. Just seeing that, because otherwise I would never have known, and I couldn't give him that kind of a life.
What we wanted was some contact with them a couple of times a year. We'll send you pictures, we'll keep you involved, and it's working out exactly the way we planned it and exactly the way they're respecting it. So in that sense, it's a wonderful relationship.
I felt like, you know, are they going to be knocking on my door every week? Or, and wanting them a part of our lives and wanting them to know where he's at and us have answers for him, but also wanting to have a separation of some sort too. And it's been fantastic. I mean, I feel like when we go, I mean, we've gone up and stayed with the birth father's grandparents and stayed overnight. I mean, it's like it's like an extended family for us, kind of like we've adopted him and they've adopted us.
My situation with Vivian and Tommy was amazing. I had heard stories, and going into this, being a birth mom, I was afraid myself too. But like we've said, after meeting, you just know.
When we first talked to Heather, I think we talked for 2.5 hours. We felt very relaxed and very much like we could easily talk to each other, like we've known each other forever. We felt the same way with her family when we came for dinner. And we just, as soon as we saw each other, we were all hugs, and it just, we just felt like we were family from the beginning, and that relationship has grown through the 2.5 years.
Every time I knew I was going to be going up there to see them, I was excited. And every time I left, I just left with a bigger smile, knowing that I made the best decision that I ever made in my entire life. You know, and just every time I left, I felt closer to Vivian and Tommy and closer to Matthew as well.
It's not about adoption every day. We're a family, and it's really cool. And we like having the Dylan's birth mom come and visit. And
we miss
it's
Lisa,
neat,
Crystal's
and we
birth
really
mom.
I miss Lisa, Crystal's birth mom. I think we connected a lot.
You know, now I know how my dad felt. You know, I have 3 brothers, there's 4 boys, and this is our first and my first son. So, you know, it's just incredible to finally know what my dad felt when he had me and my brothers, and it's just an incredible feeling. I mean, you can't really explain it. It's now that I'm here, I would never go back.
When you come in after a crappy day and your kid says, "Mommy, guess what I did in school today?" and, you know, my friend came over or whatever, or God, when they get hurt, you know, they stumble on the playground and they fall, and the first thing they do is look for Mom. And she calls you from across the playground, "Mom!" You know, that panic. It's just amazing, you know, it fills you in a way I never thought. I always knew that I would love my children, but I never knew what that intensity would really feel like. And again, it just has like so nothing to do with biology.
When we talk about something, there are no boundaries, which is great. We just talk about whatever. And I adore them. I think they're wonderful together. I think they're wonderful parents for Kai. And I don't think, everybody says that when they have their match, they're meant to be matched. No matter how long it took, that's the child they were meant to have. And I think as a birth parent, that's the adoptive parents that you were meant to have.